Welcome back. In this video we will see how we are going to complete this activity 8. So this is the same activity we completed with activity 7, but here the difference is in the activity 7 we have used the cookies to handle this scenario, but in this case we are going to use the session. So we discussed the difference between this session and this HTTP session class. So the difference between the HTTP session and the cookies, so with the cookies actually we are going to save some information in the client on the client's machine. So then we are going to get this information once the request comes to the server. But with this HTTP session, so this is the inbuilt architecture we are having with these servlets. So in this one we are going to use these servers to save some information, and then we are going to get this users information back from this server information. So therefore this is very similar. We can use the same approach in all these steps, but in this case step 8 and the other steps, so we are going to do some changes to our code because we are going to use HTTP session class. So let's see how we are going to do it. So I'm going to use the previous project here. So I will import the activity 7. So this is already available on the VLE, so you can download from the VLE. So activity 7, so I'm going to import it. Okay, I'm having one. So first I will delete that one and come. Okay, activity 7. So I will import activity 7 now. Okay, now this is what we have implemented during our activity 7 video. So let's run this project. Okay, so we will register one user to check whether the things are working well here. Okay, so you can see that we have successfully, so we are getting the successfully registered message. So that means now the system is working well. But here once we are going to log in, so I will go to the servlet login servlet. So here once you are going to log in to this website, so here we have created cookies. But now in this activity 8, so we are not going to create cookies, we are going to use the inbuilt architecture called HTTP session. So we will see how we are going to do it. So I'm going to remove this code line. So now I'm going to create HTTP session object. So we need to import this JavaX servlet HTTP session package library. So then I'm going to create a session object here. So then we can call to the request, the session is coming with the request, and we can call to get session method, and we can store this with this session. So now so if this user's login information is correct, so now I'm going to create a session. Okay, now so I'm going to create a session variable here. First I actually got the current session or the active session, and I save this active session with the session object, HTTP session object called session. So now I'm going to create a variable with this session object, session dot set attribute, and I can set the attribute as user here. So we will use user here. So then I'm going to save this user object as a attribute here. So in previous case we have actually saved only first name last name information only, because in that case we are going to save this information on the client machine. So in that case we need to send this information through the network, so therefore we cannot send very heavy information through the network. So therefore what we actually what we actually saved in that case is the first name and last name. But in this case we are using HTTP session class, so it's a inbuilt architecture, so therefore we can use this server to save this information. So in this case we are going to save this user object inside this session um, session object. Okay, so the now the key of this object is user. So now we have created the session. So now let's see how we are going to get some values from this session. So once once the login is success, user is moving to the welcome servlet. So we will go to the welcome servlet. So this is the welcome servlet. So in this welcome servlet also we had some kind of code lines like this. So here we are actually accessing the cookies, and after that we are getting the values. But now I'm going to remove this part. So I'm going to remove these parts, but I need this message. So therefore, so I will keep this message. So I will keep this message here, and then I'm going to remove all these parts. Okay, now this is the welcome servlet page. So now we are going to get this session again from the request, because now we redirected to this page because we are coming with the session. So therefore again we are going to create session object here called session, and we are accessing the request, and we are going to get the current session. Okay, now so here also we need to import this relevant library. So now again here we need to get that user object. So therefore we are going to create a user object here, and we need to import the user class. And now we are accessing this session, and we have a method called get attribute, and now we need to pass the key of this attribute. So in this one we have named this key as user, so therefore I'm going to use the same key here, user. So now okay, now we got the user object, but here you can see there's an error because incompatible type, because this get attribute method you can see it's written in an object, but here we need a special type of object, so that is a use object. So therefore we are doing some casting here to convert this object as a use object like this. Now no errors. So now since we are using we got the use object here, so now we can directly access this object user dot, we can call to get first name, and here also we can call get last name. Okay, so now we got this information from our session. So in this case also, so like in a previous activity, so we need to protect this application when the user is going to access without having having an active login. So in this case you can see that if user attempts to access the welcome servlet without having a login, so then we need to redirect to the index.html page. So we will handle that part as well here. So in this case if user is if users so once we get got this session, so we are going to check whether this user is having an active session. Okay, so we are going to check whether this session attribute, whether this session attribute is not equal null. Okay, if it is not equal null, then we are going to do this part. If it is not equal to null, then we are going to get the user object and we are going to print this information. So if it is null, so then we are going to redirect this user. So we are going to use response dot send redirect, and we are going to redirect this user to index dot html page. Index.html page. Okay, so now we that modification. So now we will see how our system is our site is going to work with http session class, because in this case we have used http session, not the cookies like in previous activity. Okay, so we will use the registered account. Okay, now you can see, now we got the same interface, but now the architecture or the implementation of this page is different, because in this case we are using http session. So now since we are using the session, so we need to modify the sign out as well, because in the previous case we have developed this sign out by deleting these cookies, but now in this case we don't have cookies. So therefore what we are going to do is we are going to use session invalidate method to invalidate the session. So in this case so we are going to use again we need to create a http session. So we need to create a http session object called session, and we can access the request and we can get the session, now the current session, and again we will add this library, and after that we can call to session dot invalidate. So then we can delete, or we can inactive this session. So now once I click on this sign out, you can see now I signed out. So if I'm going to access this now welcome page, so you can see still I'm in the index page, so that means I cannot access it. It's redirecting me to again to the index page. But if I use a valid login, I can access it like this. So if I sign out, so this is welcome page. Now if I sign out, so now again I'm back to this index.html page. Okay, so this is how we are going to implement the same activity which we completed with activity 7 by using http session class. Okay, so now you have some idea how to use this http session. So this is the recommended approach to use because it's easy. So like otherwise in the previous case we need to save the information again on the user side, and we need to get it again. So when you're going to retrieve it also, so we need to retrieve one by one. So that means we need to access cookie by cookie and we need to get the value. So that's very difficult. But with this approach it's very easy, because we can save lot many data, because we are using the server side here. So therefore it's very easy. Okay, you can also try this one. So I will upload the this code as well, so you can also try. Thank you.